Hello, Tammy Cox here with Miss Beth Miller. And Beth, I would love you to just start us out by letting us know what it is that you do and who it is that you serve.
Well, I help women who are on the verge of divorce save their marriages. That is the clientele that come my way. Often it's women that have experienced infidelity or betrayal in their marriage, and they are really plagued with obsessive thoughts, not being able to trust, just that emotional roller coaster that they're on.
Yeah, beautiful. And how long have you been doing this work?
I've been coaching online for going into 4 years now.
Awesome. That's so awesome. And did you niche down into specifically women on the verge of divorce recently, or has that been the whole 4 years?
I originally was working mainly with manifestation, like women that were really struggling with like self-love and trust and overgiving. I was working with those women, but what we found was a lot of women were also struggling with their marriages, and their marriages were really a mirror to show them all these other areas about themselves, like not feeling good enough, feeling like a failure, feeling like they're settling, feeling a fool, not feeling heard. We realized that their marriage was showing them all these other things. So when they started to work on themselves, their marriages got better. And so we started with kind of manifestation, but then it went to marriages. And then we realized a lot of the pain is in infidelity. So it kind of kept going downwards and getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, that's exactly my process too. With working with women on the brink of divorce, what I'd found is we getting down to the root cause, which is what you did too. It's funny how it was the same process for me. So that's awesome. How can spouses actively listen, empathize, and provide an emotional support to each other during challenging times?
Well, I think the best spot to start when answering that question is to look at why. Why can spouses not listen with empathy? And I think
Mm.
the biggest block is yourself. Like you are in your own way. You are being triggered by what your spouse is saying. So for instance, if I felt really angry about what something my husband was saying, just say he spent $500 at Costco. I'm like, we were only supposed to buy eggs and milk, and you came home with $500 from Costco, which is so easy to do. What's happening is I stopped listening to what he did instead of appreciating what he did. Instead, I'm going into a place possibly of a scarcity mindset, thinking about money and budgets. Instead of listening empathetically, I'm going into a triggered place. So that's one of the biggest spots. So if you want to be able to listen, empathize, and support your partner better, you got to really deal with those triggers. And then we can figure out why you're not doing that effectively.
Yeah, I love that. And when we talk about triggers, because some people can be like, some people are not really aware of what a trigger is. So could you just let everyone know what a trigger is?
I think a trigger is a gift. And some people will be like, what? A trigger is a gift? It really is. It's a gift being like, here you go on a platter. This is what you need to work on. Triggers are good. Like you can be triggered to be happy, but you can also often, when we refer to triggers, it's a negative, unwanted, undesirable emotion that's being triggered within you, activated. And our feelings are our feelings. I know a lot of people, when they come into this work, they're like, what? He made me angry. I'm like, nope, that's actually a chemical in your body. The thought then created a neurotransmitter or hormone that was released in your body, and your cells are literally flooded with that chemical. Your body is responsible for that anger. And so triggers really this gift, and it comes typically from somebody's words, something they said, or their lack of words. Sometimes someone doesn't say what they're supposed to, or their actions or lack of actions, and that's what triggers us. And it's triggering a belief within us. Maybe we're being triggered to think, oh, you're telling me I'm not enough, oh, you're not listening to me. That's what's being triggered, that belief. And then from there, once that belief is activated, that's when we get the thoughts and we get the emotions that start to flood us, and then we get into the behaviors of starting fights and things like that. So it all starts with a belief.
Yeah, so good and so true. Absolutely true. And I love, do you have a specific process you use? Because I believe the same thing. It's like a trigger can be completely neutral. And when we get curious about it, like, well, what is actually being triggered right now? And we go down the rabbit hole, we can, like you said, find that belief that's really being poked at right now. A wound, old wound that's being poked at.
And
Okay.
not even old, it could still be new. It could really be, it could something your partner did yesterday, but often you'll find that it's like when you get into marriages, it's the same fight, but different topic. Like I can tell you about a couple that my husband and I have had lately. It's the same thing, but it's really just something new. And so it's an old wound, but it feels like it was yesterday and something new, but it's probably not.
Right. Oh yeah. No, I mean, I've been with my husband 17 years and I find that to be true every time. If I get down to the root cause, it is the same fight.
Yeah.
Okay, so how can you recommend couples address these deep-seated resentments and negative communication patterns in their marriage?
I truly believe that couples counseling is not the first spot to start. And that's usually the go-to. Couples are seeking out a couples therapist. I truly believe each partner, or at least one, because one has the ability to do a massive transformation in the marriage, has to do a deep dive. Somebody has to really get curious as to why they're feeling this way and stop the blaming, stop the judgment, stop projecting. And I say projecting, like if you feel really angry, you're projecting that on. It's like you're vomiting and want them to feel that anger too. And so you're poking their wounds. I think a deep dive is the best way to start really working on that deep-seated resentment, which is then leading to that negative communication that just spirals. Like, how did we even get here? I love that. Like, how did we go from talking about who's making dinner to like everything that's wrong in our marriage?
Yeah, so true. I agree. I believe counseling. I mean, let's look at how couples counseling works, right? They sit you down. We're looking for who's the bad guy. Oh, he did this to me. She did that to me. And then the counselor is essentially like the referee. Oh yeah, you're wrong. You're wrong. Like it's just I think that we're at a point in history where we can really look at the science and know that counseling just is not effective. It's not effective.
No, it's not great if you don't have a strong foundation. Like personally, everyone needs to have a strong foundation. So if you're going in with your own personal cracks in your foundation, how are you supposed to build a solid one with your marriage? And the thing is, you have 1 week, not 1 week, sorry, 1 hour, maybe once a week, every 2 weeks. And that 1 hour, you're supposed to recap everything that's happened in the last week or two. That's not enough time. And you divide that by two people, you're looking at half an hour talking, plus throwing the counselor talking, you're looking at 15, 20 minutes per person to talk. That's not a lot of time to make a massive change in your relationship. And so it can often do a lot more harm. I have couples who come to me and like, I left more angry. I'm more traumatized from our session than I was going into it because it's digging up stuff and they don't have the time to really properly unpack some of the trauma that's coming up in the sessions. And after an hour, like we just have to go home and now sit with each other angry for another week or 2 weeks before we can address this again. So that's not helpful. So I think really important that you got to deal with your own stuff so that you can go to couples counseling. And one other thing about couples counseling, it is good. It's a vehicle. It works. But like if you're going to go tell the couple, go make a date night, spend some time on the couch together. Those are all strategies. I call them band-aid strategies. They're on the surface. They're not tackling the deeper festering issues below.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Why is it so crucial for individuals in a relationship to identify and work on their own triggers when trying to address and resolve their spouse's bad behavior? We'll
Yeah,
say.
I think we've already kind of addressed this one. Like triggers are your gifts. They are leading you to exactly what you need to improve upon yourself. And so that you can then communicate better with your partner. You can realize what your blocks are, how you're receiving it. We have sensory perceptors. So just imagine like these earmuffs on our ears. We have these like sensory perceptors on our eyes, like things we're seeing. And so you may just say, I'll use that same example. Have you made anything for dinner? So my sensory then takes that in as you're doing something wrong. You haven't made dinner already. Instead of you're just asking me, am I making dinner? So our sensory perceptors actually like take the words, the stimuli, and then translate it based on our past experiences and our past memories and different things that have happened in our lives. And even our own values, our own norms, what we've witnessed in our own parents in terms of their dynamics. And so it's really interesting. That's why we have to really dig into our own triggers. How are we perceiving everything that's said? Is it actual truth or is it being convoluted a little bit based on our own past?
Oh gosh. And yes, don't we all do that? Like they say one thing, but we hear a completely different story. And you're right. It's all based on our old beliefs. Okay. So in your experience and expertise, what are some key indicators or red flags that someone might be in a controlling marriage? And I say that lightly because it's at the end of the day, a perception. And why is it important for individuals to recognize these signs early on?
Yeah, before I get into it, just really quick, if you do think you're in a controlling relationship, for anyone listening or watching, make sure you confide in someone, get some help, whether it's from a professional or someone that can find help for you, and even potentially contact like an attorney, or whether you need to seek out like a woman's like a helpline. So just before we even get into that, if there's even a suspicion, I would start to investigate a little bit. But here are some of the signs. And I do have a blog on this if you want to check that out too. But some of the signs are you're feeling isolated or cut off from friends and family. You may find that your partner's doing whatever they can to kind of keep you to themselves. You may find that they're monitoring you a lot, that your partner is kind of watching what you're doing. You're feeling like you're being like almost like you're a child. You're being kind of told what to do and how to do it. Another sign is that money is being controlled, that you've kind of lost your independence when it comes to finances, or your partner's paying a lot of the bills or telling you how to use the money. Another one might be like put downs and criticism. So you're being controlled, and if you're not acting appropriately, you're put down for that. Decision making, you're left out of that. You're told you're wrong. Another one could be just jealousy, noticing when you do things, if you do want to see friends, that they're acting jealous. So those are some of the key signs. But again, if there's any suspicion, I would seek out some help just to figure out what your next steps are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How often, because I find, working with anyone who's struggling in a marriage, there's always an imbalance, right? There's always an imbalance in a healthy relationship. It's equal. Both husband and wife are equal. Both partners are equal. So if one tends to be more controlling than the other, then, the passive. So in order to get that healthy relationship cycling, we got to come into a nice yin yang symbol where it's equal, right? Where no one's more powerful than the other. Everyone is seen and heard. So yeah, I love that. And it's often, I think it's great for someone to let someone know, like you just did, what are the signs? Because if someone has all those signs, if they feel all those things in their marriage, there's a good chance they're pretty off in that balance, right? So how can couples effectively communicate? Communicate is a big one. It's a big one in our line of work. So how can couples effectively communicate and address the emotional consequences of sexual rejection in the marriage to prevent the erosion of trust and intimacy, especially when one partner consistently rejects the other?
Yeah, and when we look at this, I think we need to analyze both emotional intimacy and physical intimacy. So when we hear the word sexual rejection, it's often in regards to physical intimacy, withholding sex or not having sex. But really, we got to check out the emotional. And typically, this isn't everyone, but a lot of women need that emotional connection, that emotional intimacy before it leads to physical intimacy. And a lot of men they're okay with the physical intimacy, not always the emotional. And that's not a standard, but it's kind of the trend when it does come to male and female, if we're talking about male-female relationship. And so what do we do here? Well, I think we can take a step back and look at how did we even get there? And so there's a cycle that's called resistance, resentment, rejection. So whether it's the husband or the wife is bidding to get some sort of intimacy, whether it's emotional intimacy or physical intimacy, they hit resistance. I'm too tired, or they shut you down when you're talking about emotions. So that's the resistance. Over time, when you hit enough resistance, you just get resentful. And when you get resentful over time, you eventually just stop and you just feel rejected. And then that's what kills intimacy altogether. So I think taking a step back and look at where are you in that cycle, where are your needs not being met? And if we can analyze that first, that's one of the first steps to really trying to solve the problem.
Oh, yeah, that is so true. I haven't thought about it like that, but both the husband and the wife have requirements as far as intimacy. He requires it more physically. She requires it more emotionally. And I never thought of it like that. So that's powerful. Can you explain how the neurological aspect of depression, including their impact on the brain chemistry, relate to the strain on a marriage and family dynamics?
Yeah, so I'll just preface, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not a doctor, and I don't want to give out any advice on depression, but I can just talk to like neurology and how the brain works. So what happens is, we talked about a little bit earlier, I have a belief. The belief is, if it's I'm not safe, the belief is I'm not safe, which then creates thoughts of I'm scared of the future. I'm scared of the future, which then creates emotions such as panic and anxiety in your body, which then creates behaviors of maybe retreating to your room, not talking to others, withdrawing from certain activities. So it all starts with this belief system. In that, we talked about the belief I'm not safe goes to, I'm scared of the future is the thought, which then releases the chemical, the emotion. And so that chemical, that's that sad feeling. And so that's where we have to have interventions, whether it's most likely medically, in terms of if that's how the route you're going, or if you want to start working on other ways to combat those feelings, that's where we have to intervene. And so what I use is, obviously I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not prescribing medication. We just go right to the belief I'm not safe. And we try to reprogram that belief that I am safe. And we go back in times where someone wasn't safe, and we start neutralizing that so that they don't feel like that past time of not being safe is going to happen in their future. And so that's the method I use. But a lot of times doctors will intervene at the chemical release and try to put in different beta blockers and different types of medicine to try and correct the chemical imbalance.
Yeah. And do you have a solution in the moment? Do you have some sort of practice you do with your clients in the moment?
Well, the best thing to do is really ground yourself, like calm your nervous system, but it's temporary. It's not reprogramming your brain. You still have that same belief system driving those same thoughts, driving those same emotions. So all you can do in the moment is really ground yourself. So I love conscious stream of writing, where you just if you have 10 minutes, just write, put on some quiet music and just write as if like your brain is flooding out your arm through the pen onto paper. Tears could be soaking the page. You might be so angry that you're ripping through the paper with your pen, but it's a really powerful way to just let it all go. You might write the same thing over again. I'm angry, I'm mad, I hate you. And you could be writing it over and over again. And eventually your brain's like, all right, I'm done. It takes this big exhale. You're like, all right, that felt good to get it out. Because energy in our body, that's emotions, energy and motion. If the energy's stuck in your body, it needs to go somewhere. So whether you want to do something somatically, which is the writing, or whether you want to just jump up and down, go for a run, like some people, like there's a ton of stuff out there where like Tony Robbins, arms are flailing up and down, you're breathing in and out, in and out, in and out. You do that for 30 seconds and that just moves energy out of your body. Screaming into a pillow moves energy out of your body. And so those are things that we can use temporarily to calm the nervous system, release that energy, which may be driving some of those emotions. But again, temporary, we still have to figure out those belief systems and how to rewire them.
Yeah, there's primal screaming, which I love.
Me too.
I have my clients go into their car and scream, like just go for a drive and scream as loud as you can. I have them throw rocks, just get all.
I like that one.
Yeah, it's really good. I love the one you just the journaling one, because
the conscious stream of writing.
Journaling is one of my strongest tools, just because it has all of your focus. But I also like what you said, where, that's going to help temporarily and you're going to get those emotions out, but we got to do something about the stuck pattern. We got to do something about this pattern. So, and I also agree. I mean, if you're in a place where I've been at very low places in life and I felt like the only thing I could do in that moment, like for instance, I had a really significant postpartum with my second child. And it brought me to my knees and I was in a very low place. And so I got on antidepressants, but I found that it helped for I'd say 6 weeks. I felt really good. I was like, oh, but then after that, all my symptoms came back. So it was just so temporary for me. And I had to learn to deal with what was underneath it. So there are sometimes I believe that there is time we need to just stop the bleeding, grab a Band-Aid. But then we also get to look a little bit deeper and say, hey, this is just a temporary Band-Aid. What do I get to do to create long-lasting healing in my body? So I love all that. Darling, I love it. Okay, so what are some common signs that people can look for to identify unhealthy attachments? This is something I hear a lot right now. Unhealthy attachments in their relationships, and what steps can they take to address or break free from the patterns?
Yeah, so we're all striving for a secure attachment. A lot of us have aspects of anxious or what I call avoidant. And then there's a combo of anxious and avoidant. You can actually be both. So there's secure on the, that's where we want to strive for. And anxious, I see a lot of women in my practice that are in the anxious spectrum. Like they need a lot of reassurance. They're clingy. Their husband's maybe cheated or pulling away and they cling. They want to save the marriage. They want to fix it. And then there's a lot of women that are in the avoidant category, like, I'm running for the hills. You hurt me, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm cutting ties. And so that avoidant, they like to be alone or they can't express their emotions. And then there's also ones that are kind of a bit of both. Sometimes they have kind of that anxious clinging, and then other times they just like kind of
That's
shut down.
me.
So yeah, the mixed. We call that one a mixed at this point. And so yeah, we got to get those fixed. We really do. Otherwise, you're going to just drive continuous patterns that are unhealthy. Plus, you'll go on to your next relationship if you do leave, and you'll probably still carry that same attachment style.
Yeah. And like for me, I'm thinking about me before my healing journey. I had them all, right? I had them all. And it really wasn't until I healed myself, till I healed that little inner child within me, that I could then look at those attachments and be like, oh, well, why do I need this? Why do I feel like I need this? And do you feel like as well, when you were just talking, it kind of reminded me of the fight or flight, freeze, fawn response? Does that kind of go hand in hand?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, absolutely does. Like, you're running for the hills, or you want to find, you want to get really close. The freeze, yeah, it's tricky. Like, that's an autonomic response. Like, we automatically do that freeze or flight. We do that without even thinking. Like, it's just primal within us. And we can't do anything to reprogram that, but you can, the moment you have the recognition that you are in that state, that's when you can start to make change. And I think the more you heal your attachment style, the more you'll find that that autonomic response system doesn't kick in anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I like to, for me, when I started to recognize my patterns, the way I combated that was to come up with a new plan. Okay, so when I feel this emotion, when this comes up and I want to run, what am I going to do? And I came up with a plan. Okay, well, I'm going to lay on my bed. I'm going to take deep breaths. I'm going to go internal. I created rituals that basically combated those responses. Do you have anything like that, or do you practice anything like that, either you or your clients?
Yeah, I teach my clients to feel that feeling. Like, there is some research out there that's like, override it, get yourself into like your higher self. But before I get to that, like Esther Hicks, like Abraham Hicks, like, I feel like that's kind of her, like, get yourself into your vortex, get yourself into your
Yeah,
higher place.
right.
I personally, before we get there, I want to love that inner child, that one that's hurt. I like parts therapy, like internal family systems, and you have all these little parts. We have the hurt part of you, we have the part that wants to be a pleaser, we have the overgiver part, we have all these little parts. And the one that's really crushed in that moment, the one that's really crying out for help, I want you to like imagine, like, close your eyes and you just imagine picking her up, like your great inner self picks her up, loves her, tells her everything she needs to know. You are okay. You will be fine. I love you. And those simple, often even those three statements there can really calm a body. And so you're just honoring that little part that actually feels really massive in you right now, and just, it makes them smaller again, like good smaller. Like, it's just like, okay, she's in check. She's good. I put her in my heart. And now I get myself in that awesome vibe of like, okay, I'm empowered. I got this. I can tackle this. I'm bigger than that emotion. And so I have a tiny step before you get into that
Yeah,
empowered state.
I love that one. I love that one too. I love that one too. It's all the tools in the toolbox, right? And only you in that moment can know which tool you got to pull out. But I love the inner child one. I love that one. It's probably one of the most pivotal tools in my toolbox, I believe, because that little person within us is still there, still hurting, still all the pain until we get to release it. So that's beautiful. Okay, so in one of your blogs, you emphasize the importance of choosing the right time and place for discussing marriage problems. Can you share a specific example from your own experience where setting the right atmosphere made a significant difference in how you and your spouse approached and resolved a challenging issue?
Sure. I'll just start with one that happened this morning. So simple. We're heading to Mexico in a couple weeks. I said to my husband, we need to buy water shoes for the boys. He's like, why do we need to buy water shoes for the boys? I'm like, well, our middle son, he hates like water that has like even little bits of stuff floating in it. And where we're going, there'll be like these cenotes, so we're in these rivers, which are clean, but he didn't seem to understand. I'm like, all right, well, we're just going to ruin the vacation. Like, I went to that place. I'm like, well, probably just going to end up ruining the vacation. You can deal with him when he's having a temper tantrum and won't go in the water. Like, that's where I went, instead of just just hearing him, I went to my own like, mom, like I'm going to be the one that has to deal with this. And so I had to take a step back. And at this point, we're having a conversation. He was on the upstairs, I was on the downstairs, because I just casually said, let's buy the boys water shoes. And I thought it'd be like, great, I'm going to Amazon. I thought that's what he would say. I'm going to order a few pairs before we go. And so number one problem, I started a conversation assuming that it would have like, I'd be right. Number two, we were on different levels of the floor. Number three, I then probably should have scheduled it within our like kind of time of day, been like, okay, I have a few things I want to talk about our vacation, instead of just off the cuff, because I was running in to see a client shortly after. So I did a lot of things wrong in that situation. The one thing we did right was there's no kids around. So that was good. The kids were all at school, but you don't want to have that conversation in front of the kids. Or if you do, you want to be like, okay, we're going to table it for later if it's getting heated about water shoes. Like, so simple. Like I said, I do a lot of work with clients, but I still have my own triggers, but I catch it and that's it. Like, even though I was triggered, I then recognized it right away. Okay, I take a step back. I apologize. I see my part in this. I was just feeling a little stressed. I had a lot going on, just got the kids to school, and I thought the conversation was going to be a simple open and close situation, and it wasn't. Let's talk about this later.
Beautiful. It's perfect. Yeah, I think it's good for people to know. Like I tell my clients, this is an ongoing journey. Until we transition, we are going to have things come up for us. There's no perfection. So I think it's just good for people to know, like, yes. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you feel this way, Beth, but it's like, once you feel like you've handled one thing internally within yourself, one healing process, then there's all these other layers of the onion that keep continuously needing to be shed. That, at least that's how I feel.
I do too. And I actually get excited about those. Like I hate it, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, bring it on. I know what's on the other side is much better. I know whatever lesson I need to learn or whatever growth I'm going through right now will make me stronger in the end. So really tough times suck. And so I just feel those feelings and just give myself space. And I don't try to fix it because I know the answer will come. The answers are always within. I don't necessarily need to go even talk to my husband, friends. I need to find the answer within me first before I really go try to ask others what I should do.
Love that. Well, this has been so much fun, Beth. I feel like you've been a wealth of knowledge, given us so many tools. So many tools. I love them. Let me go ahead and have you share your free gift that you have generously offered up the viewers of the summit.
Yeah, so you can check out the 3 ways to save a marriage guide. So you can go to www.freemarriageguide.com and you can have a sneak peek at the 3 ways that I often use to help women save their marriages.
Awesome. And we're also going to link that to this. So all the URL, and then where are the other ways that people can find you?
Yeah, hop on Instagram, Facebook, pretty much any social media platform. I'm at Soulify Wellness. Soulify is like SOUL, like soul, and then ify. So kind of like Spotify, but Soulify. So Soulify Wellness. Check me out on any social media platform.
Love that. Thank you so much for this interview and just this generous gift you give to the world of healing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for everything you do as well.
Thank you.